Hi, I'm Judy, 38 years old, and a few months ago, something completely unbelievable happened to me. I felt the need to share my story ever since. But before I dive into that, let me give you some context. My parents passed away when I was very young, and I had no family to take me in. I bounced from one foster home to the next, trying to make the best of it until I turned 19 and could finally live life on my own terms. I've always been on my own, no siblings, no close family ties. Despite that, I worked hard to support myself, eventually earning my college degree. I landed a good job and was finally able to live comfortably. For the first time in my life, I felt like things were going right. Then, about 12 years ago, I met Bobby on a dating app. To be honest, I wasn't expecting much. I had signed up on a whim, feeling lonely, and wasn't looking for anything serious. When Bobby and I matched, I mostly chatted with him out of boredom. Agreeing to a date was more about having something to do than any real interest. But when we met in person, everything changed. Bobby was funny, kind, and easy to talk to. He could make me laugh one minute and hold a deep conversation the next. I found myself enjoying his company in a way I hadn't expected. What started as a casual date quickly turned into more, and before long, we were in a serious relationship. After a year together, I thought it was time to meet his family, but when I brought it up, Bobby was quick to shut the idea down. No explanation, just avoidance. It felt odd, and though it created a bit of distance between us, I didn't press the issue. 3 years into our relationship, Bobby proposed. I was overjoyed and said yes without hesitation, but as we began planning the wedding, a troubling thought started to take root. Why had I never met his family? The more I thought about it, the more it began to gnaw at me, making me question our entire relationship. I couldn't shake the feeling that Bobby was hiding something, that maybe I didn't measure up in some way. That uncertainty haunted me, and I knew I had to ask him directly. One evening, I gathered my courage. "Can I ask you something personal?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Bobby replied, his tone open. "I've just noticed I've never met any of your family. Is there a reason for that?" I asked, nervously waiting for his response. Bobby sighed, his face momentarily clouded with something unspoken. "I don't really have family, not in the way you might think. My dad passed away about 10 years ago, and as for my mom," his voice trailed off. "I'm really sorry about your dad," I said, feeling awkward for bringing up such a painful subject. "My mom's around, I guess," he continued, clearly uncomfortable. "We don't talk." "You don't talk to her?" I asked softly, sensing there was more to the story. "You don't have to share if it's too personal, but can I ask why?" He hesitated for a moment, and then, as though making up his mind, he began. "We had a huge fight years ago. I honestly can't even remember what started it. She's always been controlling, constantly judging my decisions like she knew better. It reached a breaking point when I confronted her, and she called me a disgrace to the family." I felt a wave of sympathy for him. That must have been awful. "At first, yeah," Bobby admitted, "but I've moved past it. I'm in a better place now, especially with you in my life." He smiled, squeezing my hand, and for the first time, I felt like I understood him a little better. "Do you ever think about trying to make things right with her?" I asked, hoping there might still be a chance for some healing. "It's been so many years now, maybe you both have changed." His response was immediate and firm. "Absolutely not," Bobby said, his voice steady. "You didn't see the damage she caused in my life. I can't bring that back, especially not now, when we're about to start our own family. If she ever tries to contact us, I think it's best we just ignore her." I nodded, suppressing the pang of disappointment that crept up. "Okay, whatever makes you happy," I replied, though part of me wished for a different outcome. Even though I didn't have much family of my own, it still hurt to see Bobby so cut off from the one he had left. I couldn't fully grasp the depth of his hurt, but it left me feeling conflicted. A few days later, Bobby left for a business trip, and I found myself alone, with time to reflect. It gave me space to process everything we'd talked about, and surprisingly, I began to come to terms with our unconventional life. Despite the absence of family traditions, the idea of just the two of us didn't seem so daunting anymore. We celebrated our marriage in a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by a few close friends who had become like family to us. Over the next couple of years, we poured ourselves into our work and our relationship. We found joy in exploring new places together, building memories that brought us closer and filling our lives with adventures and success. As our third anniversary approached, the conversation turned toward starting a family. At first, I hesitated. My own childhood had been marked by loss and upheaval, and I feared the same could happen to any child we had. And with Bobby's family still out of the picture, the idea of parenthood felt even more complicated. But Bobby was unwavering. His dream of becoming a father was something he held on to fiercely, and after many honest conversations, I found myself moved by his passion and our shared love. We decided I would leave my job to focus on building our family, a decision that turned out to be more difficult than we had expected. After 2 years of trying, we finally received the news we had longed for: our son was on the way. The joy and love I felt in that moment were overwhelming. Bobby embraced fatherhood with an ease and devotion that left me in awe, managing both our home life and career without skipping a beat. Everything felt almost too perfect, a sentiment that stayed with me until one day, an unexpected phone call shattered our peace. "Hello?" I answered, confused by the unfamiliar number. "Hi, this is Nicole, Bobby's mother," came the voice on the other end, sending a chill down my spine. The voice on the other end of the line was unfamiliar, yet somehow I knew exactly who it was. "Hello?" I said, trying to steady my nerves. "How are you? It's nice to finally speak with you." "I'm fine," came the response. "I was just wondering when you're planning to come pick up your daughter." The mention of a daughter hit me like a brick. "My daughter?" I stammered. "I don't have a daughter, just a son." "What do you mean?" "Well, Bobby dropped the kid off here with me, and I need to know when you're coming for her. I have plans too, you know," she replied, blunt and matter-of-fact. My mind went blank. Bobby had dropped our son off with her, and she was calling him her daughter? Confusion and alarm coursed through me. Why hadn't Bobby told me about this? And why now? The questions raced in my mind faster than I could process. "Wait, how did you even get my number?" I asked, trying to make sense of the bizarre situation. Nicole explained that Bobby had left her with a note and my contact information in case of an emergency, should he not return in time. That revelation only deepened my confusion. "Why would Bobby give you my number?" I asked. "And whose child have you been looking after all this time?" "I was hoping you could tell me that," Nicole said, sounding just as confused as I was. "He didn't explain much, just left me with this number." My stomach sank. There was something seriously off about all of this, but knowing I couldn't get answers right now, I asked Nicole to keep this between us until I could confront Bobby. She agreed, equally eager for clarity. As I hung up, a nagging thought crossed my mind: was this some kind of hoax? Yet, hearing Bobby's mother's name made it feel too real to dismiss. I tried calling Bobby repeatedly, but he didn't answer. I busied myself with household chores, trying to avoid spiraling into panic, though it was hard not to imagine the worst. The more I thought about it, the more I realized there had been odd signs in Bobby's behavior lately: his strange late hours at work, his sudden restlessness. I'd chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters at the time, but now they felt like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't ignore. When Bobby finally came home, I didn't waste any time confronting him. "Your mother called me today," I said, watching his reaction closely. "My mom?" he asked, surprised. "How did she get your number?" "You gave it to her," I said, feeling the weight of the situation settle between us. Bobby paused. "I didn't think you'd mind. I left her my number in case she needed to reach you about the kid," he explained, but his words only made me feel more unsettled. "So, you're just going to leave me hanging with this? You think I'll just sleep through the night without any answers?" I demanded, frustration bubbling up. "I'm just really tired, Judy," Bobby replied, his voice strained. "This is a lot to process. Let's talk about it when we can both handle it." I shook my head. "I can't wait until tomorrow. My mind is already running in circles. I need something. Bobby, please, just tell me what's going on." But Bobby remained adamant. "I can't talk about it right now. Let's just wait until we can both be calm," he said, too exhausted to engage further. His refusal made my anger flare. "Fine, if you won't tell me, I'll find out myself," I shot back, though part of me doubted I'd get the answers I needed on my own. The night dragged on. Every little detail from the past month now seemed like a clue, a piece of a troubling puzzle. Even the most mundane things Bobby had done, like running errands or staying late at work, seemed suspicious. What if Nicole wasn't just babysitting? What if something had happened behind my back? Exhausted, I finally fell into a fitful sleep, only to be woken up by my son at dawn. As I made breakfast, the questions flooded back. I knew confronting Bobby wasn't giving me the answers I desperately needed. The only person who might shed light on this mystery was Nicole. Reluctantly, I picked up the phone and dialed her number, hoping for some clarity. My heart raced as it rang. "Hello?" Nicole answered, her voice laced with curiosity. "Hi, Nicole, this is Judy, the one you called yesterday," I said, trying to sound calm despite the tension. "Oh, hi, Judy, have you figured anything out yet?" she asked. "Not really. I talked to Bobby, but he just brushed me off," I admitted, my frustration mounting. "That sounds like him," she said with a hint of disappointment. "Do you want me to talk to him for you?" "No, I need to hear it from him," I replied, "but can you tell me more about the argument that caused such a long silence between you two? He made it sound like you hadn't spoken in years." "A long silence? We didn't talk for a few months, but it wasn't years," Nicole corrected me, her words catching me off guard. So you've been in contact this whole time? I asked, the pieces of the story not fitting together. Of course, we've kept in touch. Wait, Bobby didn't want me at your wedding? Nicole sounded genuinely surprised, and a cold sense of dread settled in my stomach. He told me you weren't around, I began, my voice shaky with the weight of what was unfolding. And that's not the only thing. Every time I mentioned wanting to meet you, he'd come up with some excuse. You were too busy, out of town. Or he'd say you two had a huge falling out. The lies Bobby had spun were starting to unravel before me. Nicole's response was firm, and for the first time, I heard conviction in her voice. We never had any kind of fallout that would keep us from talking for years. I can promise you that. The realization hit me hard. I had been manipulated. All those lies made me view you in a negative light. I confessed. I never pushed to meet you because he always said you were judging him, and that's why he cut you out. That's hurtful, Nicole said softly. I'm sorry you got caught up in all this. I shifted back to the question that had been eating away at me. What was the real cause of your falling out with Bobby? Nicole didn't hesitate. It was about Bobby cheating on a girlfriend he'd been with for years. I found out and told her, which ended their relationship, and it led to Bobby and me not speaking for a while. The possibility that Bobby might be repeating his past mistakes sent a chill through me. Do you think he's cheating on me now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nicole's response was blunt but honest. I can't say for sure, sweetie, but given his history, I wouldn't rule it out. Her words landed like a hammer. The truth had become harder to ignore, but hearing Nicole's willingness to talk, to keep the lines of communication open for me and our son, gave me a small sense of comfort amidst the chaos. Thank you, I managed to say, feeling the weight of everything begin to crush me. The life I thought I shared with Bobby suddenly felt like a lie. All those years, all those happy moments, how much of it had been fabricated? What drove him to build such an elaborate web of deceit? Was I somehow complicit, blinded by love and trust? I couldn't understand the depth of his manipulation. How had he managed to deceive both his mother and me? The more I thought about it, the more disturbing it became. It was clear now that he had worked to keep us apart, to ensure neither of us uncovered the truth. I spent the day lost in my thoughts, going over every moment, every conversation, trying to make sense of the pieces, but nothing added up. The one thing that was undeniable, Bobby had been hiding something huge, and now, the existence of another child made everything feel even more like a betrayal. Nicole's account suggested an affair. Could Bobby have fathered a child with another woman? The idea was unbearable. What would this mean for our son? How could I raise him in a life filled with this kind of dishonesty? Despite the betrayal, a small part of me clung to hope. Maybe the child wasn't the result of an affair. Maybe it was a sperm donation. I had read about such scenarios during my frantic online searches, hoping to find any explanation that would make sense of the situation. When Bobby returned that evening, I couldn't hold back any longer. I talked to your mother again, I said, my voice steady but my anger simmering just beneath the surface. Bobby froze. Why are you doing this? His voice was a mix of Then, Bobby admitted to a brief affair, just months before our wedding. He confessed to a one-night encounter during a business trip, an admission that only deepened the rift between us. His excuses, his insistence that he didn't want to lose me, did nothing to ease the crushing blow of his betrayal. I stood there, stunned by the weight of his confession. How could you think keeping this from me was okay? I asked, my voice breaking. Bobby tried to explain, claiming that despite his past actions, he had remained faithful. He spoke about his role in his child's life and how his mother had been helping by babysitting, but none of it mattered. His words didn't soothe the wound he'd caused. I need time away from you, I finally said, my voice hollow. This is too much. I've made my decision, and it's final, I said, my voice resolute. Bobby begged me not to leave, swearing he would be transparent moving forward, but the trust between us had already been shattered beyond repair. How can I believe anything you say now? I replied, my heart heavy with the pain of betrayal. You've hurt me in ways I can't ignore, and I can't stay with you. As I began packing our things, Bobby's desperation intensified, but so did my determination. I had once imagined a life built on love and honesty, but Bobby's actions had destroyed that vision. I took our son and walked away, leaving behind the life we'd built, ignoring Bobby's tearful pleas. In search of refuge, I turned to Nicole, who had shown me nothing but kindness and support. She opened her home to us without hesitation, offering the comfort I so desperately needed in this painful moment. Her home became a sanctuary, a place where I could start to heal and begin to think about what my future would look like without Bobby. Despite my need for space, Bobby couldn't let go. He came looking for me at Nicole's, but Nicole stood firm, ensuring I had the peace and space to recover. Throughout this time, she was a steady source of strength, helping me navigate the overwhelming emotions and difficult decisions I now had to face. What had begun as a chapter marked by betrayal slowly transformed into one of unexpected support. Nicole's unwavering kindness reminded me of the power of compassion and how, even in the darkest times, there are people who will stand by you. She was instrumental in helping me find a skilled divorce attorney, someone who could guide me through the complexities of ending my marriage and securing custody of our son. Bobby tried to bypass the legal process to maintain contact, but I made it clear that all communication would go through my lawyer from that point on. In the courtroom, the truth about Bobby's actions became impossible to ignore. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Bobby to pay both alimony and child support. As for custody, the court granted Bobby visitation rights 1 week per month. While I had my doubts about his ability to be a positive influence, I knew it was important for our son to maintain some relationship with his father. I decided to hold off on explaining the situation to him, allowing him to form his own perspective on his father as he grew older. Bobby's reaction to the divorce was one of deep regret, but he continued trying to reach out to me, primarily through Nicole. She stood as a firm barrier, respecting my need for distance and ensuring that I could heal in peace. Eventually, I learned that Bobby had moved in with the mother of his other child, signaling the end of that chapter in our lives. The aftermath of the divorce and the revelations I had uncovered necessitated months of therapy. It was a painful but transformative journey, one of self-discovery, healing, and growth. Through it, I learned the value of emotional well-being and the importance of resilience. Now, after months of reflection, I've come to a place where I can share my story openly. It's not just a step in my own healing, it's a way to connect with others who might be going through similar struggles, to offer them the same kind of support and understanding that Nicole had given me. Thank you for listening to my story.